What you are looking at is an ad published in Variety magazine, paid for by director Terry Gilliam, right after Universal Pictures released, in the US, a 94-minute cut of his 142-minute film. Welcome back to Golden Flicker. This is just one small chapter of the story we are going to explore today. The story of the 1985 film Brazil. This film was nearly destroyed by a studio president who thought it was unmarketable, resulting in at least 3 different versions and a guerrilla marketing campaign that changed the industry. We will reveal how a single image on a dusty beach led to a cinematic revolution, and why the battle for this film is just as fascinating as the story on screen. Before we descend into the pipes and paperwork of the Ministry of Information, I have to ask, do you remember the first time you watched Brazil? Was it the overwhelming visual detail or the haunting melody that stayed with you? Tell us about your first trip to this dystopia in the comments. The idea for Brazil came from a beach.
Originated when I was looking for locations for Jabberwocky or Holy Grail, one of those 2 films. And we were in Wales. And Port Talbot is a steel town that has fallen on hard times. And I was out on the beach in the evening, and it's the most dismal place in the world because there's these great jetties and conveyor belts that carried the coal from the ships up to the steel plants. And all this coal dust had spread over everything. So everything had this wash of blackness over it, and it was ugly, it was grey. And the sun was setting, and it was a beautiful sunset. And I just had this image of somebody sitting on this beach with a radio and this beautiful sunset, obviously trying to escape from this bleak world of his, and picking up on the radio this song.
Gilliam wanted to create what he called the 1984 for 1984. Interestingly, he admitted he had never actually read George Orwell's novel. He simply absorbed its essence through cultural osmosis. He blended this with the bureaucratic nightmares of Franz Kafka and the dreamlike surrealism of Federico Fellini. In fact, the original working title was the cheeky 1984 and a half. He even drew inspiration from the Spanish Inquisition, fascinated by how a system could be so monstrously efficient while remaining completely indifferent to human suffering. So Brazil is a vision of the present, distorted just enough to feel like the future. The film opens with a title card that reads, "Somewhere in the 20th century. Not the future. Now." The film has nothing to do with the nation of Brazil, so why the title? It comes from the song Aquarela do Brasil by Ari Barroso, a 1939 samba known simply as Brazil to English-speaking audiences. For our protagonist, Sam Lowry, this song is his sanctuary. It plays triumphantly in his heroic dreams, and ironically over scenes of horrific state violence. By the time we reach the devastating final act, the song ceases to be an escape and becomes a symptom. As Sam hums it to himself in a torture chair, we realize that while his mind has found freedom, the world has finally broken him. Brazil was a co-production. 20th Century Fox handled international distribution, Universal Pictures handled the US release. In February 1985, Fox released Gilliam's 142-minute cut in Europe, without interference, without complaints. The film was a hit. Critics loved it. Sid Sheinberg, president of Universal's parent company, MCA, considered the film long, bleak and uncommercial. He acknowledged it had brilliance in many portions of it, but estimated its box office potential as something close to zero. He wanted changes, big ones. Scheinberg wanted the love story emphasized. He wanted the offbeat comedy played up, wanted the dark ending replaced with something hopeful. He even wanted Michael Kamen's brooding orchestral score swapped out for contemporary rock hits to attract teenagers. Gilliam refused, so Universal pulled the film from its release calendar. And then, behind Gilliam's back, Scheinberg ordered his own re-edit. Universal editors hacked the film down to just 94 minutes. They removed the tragic final act, where the protagonist is lobotomized, to a happy ending where he escapes with the woman he loves into a pastoral paradise. This became known as the Love Conquers All cut. Gilliam called it a complete betrayal, and what followed was unprecedented.
Attention citizen, you are currently in violation of Information Retrieval Regulation 27B/6. To avoid immediate processing and potential readjustment, you must validate your engagement status. Please apply your digital signature by clicking the Like button and ensure your residency in the Golden Flickr community is officially registered via the Subscribe button. Failure to do so may result in a visit from our technicians. However, if you wish to provide extra departmental support and gain priority clearance without filling out a single form, simply click the Join button to become a member. While you're at it, please submit Form 12A in the comments with your suggestions for our next cinematic investigation. We are always watching. Now, back to the film.
We have reached the Golden Flickr moment. Most directors, when faced with this kind of studio interference, either capitulate or sue. But Gilliam?
I mean, the important thing in all of this was to not do battle on their ground, to not use their weapons. And so by going public, it was quite interesting to take out, to be quoted, Arnon saying, we'll fly any legitimate journalists to Europe or bust them to Mexico. They can see it.
He took out that full-page ad in Variety magazine.
I remember calling the next day, calling up Variety and said, I want to take out this ad. I want a full-page ad, and I want it bordered in a black border on it like a funeral announcement, an obituary, and then in the middle in just simple type, with a lot of white space around, just Dear Sid Sheinberg, when are you going to release my film Brazil, signed Terry Gilliam. And I think it cost me $1,500 or £1,500, I can't remember.
Then he began hosting secret screenings for film students and critics in Los Angeles, often sneaking the reels past studio security. On the night Universal was celebrating the premiere of their expected awards sweeper, Out of Africa, the Los Angeles Film Critics Association made a shock announcement. Despite the film not being officially released in the US, they had used a loophole in their bylaws to watch it.
And all in their black ties for the big dinner, and the LA critics vote came in. Best Picture Brazil, Best Director T. Gilliam, Best Screenplay, and what the f*** is this? And that was exactly what happened. It went crazy.
Then Terry Gilliam and Robert De Niro went on Good Morning America.
Bobby De Niro and me. Now De Niro at that point never promoted his films. He did nothing. He wouldn't do interviews. And this is the great thing, and this is the important thing, is his loyalty to the project. He cared enough to go on national television to support the film, not me, the film. And I sat there waiting for the interview with Bobby to end, which was quite quick. Because, she would ask some very intelligent question, and he'd yes, or no. That was a choice. I just went on, and eventually she realized, she turned around to me and said, now Terry, I understand you have a problem with the studio. I said, no, I don't have a problem with the studio. I have a problem with one man. His name is Sid Sheinberg, and I whipped out an 8x10 glossy of Sid. I rushed the camera and held it there for millions of Americans to see my enemy. Now, that is very confusing to a leader of a corporation.
Universal was publicly outmaneuvered and forced to release Gilliam's preferred 132-minute US cut on Christmas Day 1985. Brazil was made on a budget of about $15 million. In the United States, it grossed only $9 million. In Europe, Fox released Gilliam's full cut without interference, with proper marketing in proper cinemas. It performed well in the UK, France, and across the continent. It was a genuine hit. The film actually turned a profit globally. So we ended up with at least 3 distinct versions of Brazil. The 142-minute director's cut, Gilliam's original vision, released in Europe by Fox. This is considered the definitive version. The 132-minute US theatrical cut, supervised by Gilliam. Slightly trimmed to satisfy a contractual length clause, but with his preferred dark ending intact. The 94-minute Love Conquers All cut, Sheinberg's edit with a happy ending, eventually released for syndicated television. Gilliam disowned it entirely.
The only director's cut that doesn't have the proper credit on is Sid Sheinberg director's cut, which eventually got out on television. People thought I'd be shocked, and I was delighted because it's a chance for people to see what they intended to make.
Film historian Jack Matthews documented 4 distinct versions in his book, The Battle of Brazil, with intermediate editorial stages during the US distribution fight. But for most purposes, those 3 are the ones that matter. One reason audiences responded so strongly was the look.
I think in some of the ideas and thoughts and attitudes and fears about the establishment, about authority, about people doing as they're told unquestioningly, it philosophically comes from the same stable as Python. But in visual terms, it's pure Gilliam.
Brazil didn't look like any science fiction film that had come before it. Gilliam called the aesthetic retro-futurism, or sometimes Frankenstein design. Instead of sleek, advanced technology, the world of Brazil is a chaotic collision of old and new. Computers with 1940s typewriter keyboards and tiny screens magnified by enormous lenses. Pneumatic tubes running through every wall. Fashion blending mid-20th century suits with futuristic couture. Production designer Norman Garwood worked with Gilliam to create what he called Art Deco with a futurist twist, drawing heavily from 1930s and 1940s magazines that imagined the shape of the world to come. Steampunk already existed as a literary genre. The term itself was coined in 1987, 2 years after Brazil. Gilliam gave the most iconic cinematic expression to the steampunk aesthetic. And that visual language has been borrowed by filmmakers, designers, and game developers ever since. Cinematographer Roger Pratt used ultra-wide 14mm lenses to create a distorted, claustrophobic feel. This lens is now so synonymous with the director that filmmakers simply call it the Gilliam. The script took 6 years to develop.
To start with, there was always a panic about the script. Terry had ideas, but he couldn't get them into the script, and it went through a couple of writers.
Terry and I disagreed about whether things were funny or not, but as I found Time Bandits very funny, I tended to think that he must be right and I must be wrong.
Robert De Niro originally wanted to play Jack Lint, the charming but evil bureaucrat. But Gilliam had already promised that role to Michael Palin. De Niro took the much smaller role of Harry Tuttle. And he worked for free, because he was contractually tied up elsewhere. He even brought his own tool belt and gadgets to the set. Sam Lowry, the lead role, was written specifically for Jonathan Pryce. It was essentially his star-making role. Katherine Helmond, who plays Sam's mother, spent 10 hours a day with a prosthetic mask glued to her face. The glue caused such severe blisters that filming had to be postponed. The restaurant bombing scene was inspired by the IRA bombings Gilliam witnessed during the years he lived in London. The absurd British composure in the face of terror was something he'd actually observed. Gilliam himself appears in the film. He's the shadowy, smoking figure who stalks Sam at various points, uncredited. His daughter Holly also appears, playing one of Jack Lint's daughters. Brazil should have ended Gilliam's career. Instead, it cemented it. Today, it's considered one of the greatest science fiction films ever made. In 1999, the British Film Institute voted it the 54th greatest British film of all time. In 2017, a poll of 150 industry professionals for Time Out magazine ranked it 24th. Its influence is everywhere. Tim Burton and production designer Anton Furst studied Brazil as a reference for Batman in 1989. The Coen brothers borrowed from it for the Hudsucker Proxy. French directors Jean-Pierre Jeunet and Marc Caro coined the term retro-futurism, describing their own Brazil-inspired work like Delicatessen and The City of Lost Children. Bong Joon-ho's Snowpiercer was widely described as the most Brazil-esque film of its generation. And Bong himself fought a near-identical battle with Harvey Weinstein over the cut of that film and won, just like Gilliam. Rian Johnson has spoken openly about discovering Brazil in his freshman year of college and directly referenced it in Star Wars: The Last Jedi.
Yep, those are the shuttle parkers. Oh, all right, you two are under arrest for parking violation of 27 Beast.
Listen, this whole system of yours could be on fire, and I couldn't even turn on a kitchen tap without filling out a 27B/6.
But perhaps the most striking thing about Brazil's legacy is how its themes keep getting more relevant. Surveillance states, the war on terror, algorithmic bureaucracy, extraordinary rendition. Every passing decade makes the film feel less like satire and more like documentary.
It was all there. That's when terrorism was really exciting, not like now, it's tedious. Planes would be hijacked. The Red Brigade was stealing prime ministers in Italy. It was a great time. IRA was very busy in London. And so it just seemed that was it. And almost all the ideas in there about paying for your incarceration, that was happening in South America. These things were actually happening. And so for me, it was more of a political cartoon is what it really was.
Gilliam himself eventually gave up his American citizenship in 2006 after George W. Bush's re-election. He once joked, "The situation today is depressing because we kind of predicted it in Brazil back in 1985. A couple of years ago, I was considering suing Bush and Cheney for infringement of copyright. The best way to control people is to keep them scared." A filmmaker fighting his system. A character fighting his system. Both of them, in their own way, escaping into dreams. That's Brazil, the film they tried to bury and couldn't. If you discovered something new today, illuminate our day by clicking like and subscribe to Golden Flicker, so you never miss a story from the annals of cinema history. Which film should we explore next? Let us know in the comments.